Warning. The following is extremely addictive content. The original Savage Podcast may cause increased levels of success, happiness, and completely transform your life. You've been warned.
Welcome, everybody. It is that time of the week again. It's time for another episode of the original Savage Podcast. And you guys know that I always bring the fire, always got them guests stacked up. This one's no different. Get ready, because we're about to get all kinds of insight. It is going to be a special one. I know it is. So without further ado, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, tell everybody who you are, what you do, all that good stuff.
Thank you for having me on. I feel like you're making me enthusiastic. Just jumping on here. My name is Zach Coleman, and I am owner of a grit and motivation focused branding agency out of Arizona, where we help athletic-driven brands find their why through community and brand-building experiences.
Awesome. So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of what we connected over a little bit, right, was that movement from athletics to business or to their professional career, right? Like that transition. And something I talk about. I've had athletes on the podcast. And so, without getting too much into that, I'll just jump into the question I always ask everybody. In your opinion, what is that one thing that takes somebody from where they're at to that next level of performance? What is that one thing that's that like catalyst for change, that is that real lasting change and that real, extra push? What is that one thing?
I would say, in short, it's grit, right? I think that having the ability to understand that working on your mental self is going to be a powerhouse, and it is going to be what not just helps you re-evolve your why, but it's going to help you get past those persevering moments where you're having downturn or you're having second thoughts about the evolution of self/business/brand, whatever you're trying to build.
Man, it's awesome because this is literally episode 12 and no one's ever had the same answer. So I love it, but yeah, grit is an absolute great one. And I think that, you saying that mental, aspect of it and that personality one, I think it fits so well with the things that I say, because I'm all about individuality and perspective. And I think that for most people, grit's going to mean something different, right? Grit's going to be a little bit different for everybody. And I love that because, again, my big things are individuality and perspective. So like that little bit of different interpretation on what does grit mean or what really is grit, I think that that's awesome because, yeah, that really can be a key for people going forward, and it can be different for each person. So I like that. I like that word to be able to push people because it can mean whatever they want it to mean. Really, I mean, obviously it means certain things, but they can have their own interpretation on it, and then that's just going to help them all that more.
Yeah, definitely. I think that grit in itself, I like to kind of separate two things because I feel like a lot of people can kind of interpret grit very similar to hustle. And I think especially if you're a professional or an athlete that has gotten to the point where you're like, hey, I'm done with the game. I'm trying to find something new. If it be a college and you're getting past nil, or if it be past professional and you're at the point where you're like, well, what do I do now? I think that there's this mentality of, hey, I worked really hard. I worked 6, 7, 8 hour days when I was, on the field. And that was performance, right? That was how I tracked my goals. That's how I tracked how I was going to do better. But in reality, once you kind of get to that next stage of life, things are different. I used to say that, time, when you're first starting out, time equals money, right? And as an athlete, I really don't think it's much different because it's like, hey, you're dedicating a certain amount of time on the field, and that's going to be portrayed to what you're going to make off the field. But when it comes to, as you grow to the next stage of life and in business, you go through kind of a rebrand, so to say, of self. And I think we all go through this, not just professional athletes, that you have to start looking at, I used to say, well, money starts to equal time. And I think that people start to get in this mentality, especially athletes, where they think, oh, now money equals time for me. Now I can just kind of go in here. And I've come to learn that, really money doesn't equal time. Really what it is it's time efficiency equals money, because you have to start doing and understanding different things and taking responsibility for much more controllable, high producing type actions that probably take less effort than when you were on the field. For instance, it's a lot like being, a quarterback for an NFL team that's in it for 15 years versus, being a college quarterback where you're trying to prove yourself. You're going to put a lot more effort in, right? Where when you grow and you're at that certain stage, you have the skill set, you understand the playbook, you've gone through certain tribulations where certain things that other people may take to learn, countless hours, countless years to learn. And so you know how to be efficient with your time at that point because you can kind of do certain things. And so it's no different in the business world. It's no different in the business world. It's no different. It's no different in life, I would say, either. I have 3 young children now, and I think that's kind of part of my calluses, which I had to go through a rebrand effort because I hit a valley of death period in my business and I had 3 kids at the same time. And so I was like, all right, how do I be more smart? And I think when it comes down to grit and perseverance, that's really what it comes down to is hey, how can I be efficient with the things that I want to do and start, even though there's going to be certain things that I think we all know that we have to do that we don't want to do, how can we be more efficient with our time towards the things that we like to do?
Man, so much to unpack there. Yeah, no. You're exactly right though. So I'm going to put this out there because this is one of the things that kind of hits me. And you're right. A lot of people see time as money or money as time and see it that way. But coming from my background in finance world, it's wealth is time freedom, right? That's what a lot of people actually see it as. Is wealth equals time freedom or just freedom, whatever you want to call it. But money doesn't necessarily equal time. There's plenty of people that have lots of money that have no time. But going back to that grit versus hustle, I love that you went into the efficiency side of it because there's plenty of people out there running the rat race saying, oh my God, I'm so busy. Oh my God, I'm so busy. I'm so busy. I'm so busy. I work so hard. Okay, what's that get? Just doing something is not going to make you better. Just going through the motions isn't going to make you better. Like, you have to be efficient in your time, but also efficient in your movements, in your actions, right? If it's not getting you results, there's no point in doing it. Like, just hustling is never going to make you better if you're hustling at the wrong things.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You've got to be going through the right motions. It's baseball season right now. I coach Little League baseball, right, for my son, and I've been trying to talk to the kids about this. Is like I put them through certain drills before the game, before our practices, to try to teach them the proper swing mechanics, biomechanically, how they should be loading their body and things like this. And I've broken it down into very simple swing drills that make it work. But some of those people just go through the motions and show up, and I've got 30 minutes to get 12 kids through 50 swings. I can't watch every single kid every single time. I've got 4 or 5 different stations set up that I've got to bust them through. And I'm usually in the cage throwing batting practice. So the drills that you're doing behind me, if you're not doing them the right way, you're not going to get anything out of it, right? That you might be doing them. You're taking the same number of swings as somebody else, but they may be getting 10 times the results that you're getting because they're doing it properly. And you're just going through the motion. It was the same effort. You both hustled, but one of you got a lot more out of it than the other one.
Well, and I think that there's like you said, there's plenty to even unpack on that, because you see certain kids, they'll, be like, oh, this this other kid can do this 10 times better than me, and he barely has to practice. He barely has to do anything like that. But I think the key answer there is one kid may be very good and has practiced and persevered past a certain point where he enjoys that technique, where he no longer has to practice at that 6 hours a day, or before a game. He may only have to spend 10 minutes because he's got the muscle memory and the mental memory to understand that skill set at that point. So now he can move on to something else.
Yeah, I mean, so at some point, I mean, my son, I've put him through that drill for 6 years now, probably, right? And he still takes the same drills. I don't let him skip warm-ups. He still warms up the same way, because the way that I built it is for it to warm your body up, to get your body moving in the correct direction. It's not meant to be, oh, hey, this is going to be the end-all, be-all fixer upper of your swing, and now we're going to go out and do this. It's just meant to get your body moving in the right way.
Yeah, stretching.
Right, and it's about how you then can translate that to your actual performance in the game and things like that, right? So, but I also tell people, it's like, hey, listen, there's a time to work and there's a time to perform, right? So after the tee work, after the warm-ups, you can't be thinking about it anymore. That's why you have to take the warm-up so serious and do it the right way, because once it's time to perform on the field, it's a reaction. You're not thinking about, what did coach say? What did this feel like? What did that feel like? Like you said, with the NFL quarterback, right, that's been in the league for 5 minutes and 5 years or 15 years. The ones, you listen to the commentators or ex-players or whatever, and they all say the game slows down. It's easier, it's faster, they can do whatever they need to. It's just a reaction. It's not that obviously the game doesn't slow down, like time doesn't work that way. Unless Tom Brady broke like Einstein's whole space-time continuum deal. But
and he could have.
He very well could have. But, it's just that reaction's there, right? He knows how to react in certain situations. He doesn't have to think about it. The kid that's been there for 5 seconds, the brand new rookie quarterback, he doesn't know how to process all the information that's coming at him. There's so many things happening. He just doesn't understand how to react at that point. He has to see more things. He has to get that experience so that he can react. And that's what we have to do in life and business and everything that you've said. It's about being efficient and training ourselves to react.
Well, to your point, there was a circumstance that happened to me. I remember a couple years within the business where I had a really big client that it was an athlete that we were working with, and he was going through some personal stuff, and it ended up not moving forward after we signed the contract, and after about a month back and forth. And I remember I was down for like a whole month after. It was like a breakup for me, because it was going to be a very big job, not just for us internally, but we were really going to help this athlete during his transition, and he still had some mental blocks there that he apparently had to work on before he could move forward with us. But there was a vein in my head. There was a vein that, we always call it in the business world. You have to get past those veins, those pain veins or whatever they call them. And, now when a certain circumstance like that happens to me, I'm like, well, it happens. So emotionally, and not just physically, but emotionally, we go through training in life where we go through certain circumstances that we may see as so drastic that we have to learn from. So as we continue to grow, we can learn from them and move on faster, or be better prepared mentally to handle the challenges that come about with those situations.
No, absolutely. That's the thing, is it's about how you react to those situations, right? Use it because some people, they're going to go down in the dumps for a month. That may make some people quit, right? But like you said, it's about grit, right? And grit, to me, is more about just that internal intestinal fortitude, people like to say, right? Of I'm gonna make it, I'm gonna do it. It doesn't matter what anybody else says. Like, it's that will to win and get up, get knocked down, and don't care. You're gonna grind it out, right? you're going to make it happen. It's that you just push no matter what, right? So when we have something happen, if you have that grit, it's like you might go through a struggle. It's a speed bump, right? It is what it is. Like, but you know that you can turn it around. Whereas some people are going to go down in that dumps and they're going to quit. Some people are going to say, oh, this happened, and then they're going to shift because that's just how they deal with it, right? It's about understanding internally how you deal with things, right? Tom Brady handles the blitz different than Lamar Jackson does. Lamar Jackson sees the blitz and he takes off. Tom Brady sees the blitz and he hits the slot receiver over the middle, right? Different people deal with things differently.
Those damn 12-yard catches every play as he goes down the field. As he goes down the field and you're watching it and you're like, oh, here it goes. He's just going to do 12-inch. They're sitting there in zone and he's just going to sit there and hit the slot receiver on the slant like 8 times and they're not doing anything about it. They're just going to keep doing it until he gets all the way done, and that's always what happens. Sorry.
Every single time.
I still have triggers from my Falcons loss, almost 10 years ago now.
that one, no matter how strong you are internally, that'll get you. But yeah, it is that learning how you react, right? And I think that's what that's that efficiency coming back. Like you talked about, that efficiency coming back of learning yourself and learning how you're going to react so that you can prepare yourself.
Well, and here's the thing. The beauty with sports is that it's a great way from a grit perspective to learn leadership. It's a great way, like you said, hey, I mean, even professional athletes train before games, and so it's a great way for you not just to be able to have a loss and understand what losses and failures feel like, but without a huge drastic ramification. But throughout the years, as it teaches you leadership, it teaches you teamwork. And that's really what leadership is, right? At the end of the day, it's about teamwork. It's about culture. It's about building a team. I mean, you've talked to a lot of players yourself, and so you've probably seen and heard that, a lot of the back-end organization of a team is really what causes, a team to be really good or not. And that's Absolutely. The team that you don't see on the field. That's the team that is helping with those trainings, helping with coming up with the playbook, helping keep the team motivated. And so when it comes back to players in general, especially during that transition when going from athletic, becoming a professional player to personal, they have this great leadership skill. They have this great leadership skill that they can come in and they have it above and beyond most, business owners that have to go through the trials and tribulations. The one thing they don't have is they don't have experience running a business. They don't have, right. They haven't gone through the trials and tribulations of that. And that's something that I've seen quite a bit when they have come out and I've worked with them is that they have all this money and they want to do something. And it's like, well, you can go into an investment and yeah, you can, it's that money equals time perspective. You could put money into an investment, which is great. But if you want to have more control over the outcome and the grit of how you're going to make money again, you're going to have to open a business. It's just how it goes. And you're going to have to learn all those trials and tribulations from a different perspective and a different skill set and go through those different trainings as, a business owner went through for, 10, 15, 20 years before they got to where they were going to go. And so that's something that I think a lot of athletes need to kind of understand as they're kind of going through that perspective. And, to be honest, it's not for everyone, and that's why a lot of athletes become commentators or they become, they go into the corporate world, which is totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. We need them too. But just understanding that, hey, just because you have all this money and you have all this stuff doesn't mean it's still not going to be hard. You're still not going to have to persevere. You're still not going to have to build grit and try to make it through some of those downturns and some of those upturns.
Well, it's because it's different. Like,
yeah,
yes, they know how to succeed. They know the secret to success because they've been there. They've succeeded. They understand what hard work looks like. and to some point they understand what efficiency looks like, but it's a different version of those things. It is, when let's go back to football, right? When they come off the field, even in game, there's someone handing them an iPad or a Microsoft Surface, I think is the actual sponsor, but there's somebody handing them a Surface and saying, hey, here's what just happened, right? They have it right there for them. They can analyze, they watch film, they do all of these things. When they go home at night and come back after the game the next day, they're watching film. They have their stats, right? It's sitting there telling them what they did during the day. You did this. When you're running a business, you got to perform and keep your own statistics, right?
Yeah, exactly. You have to build that culture that was able to allow you. It's a lot harder than you think to have someone come up to you and hand you an iPad and say, hey, it's people. You have to get more involved with people, right? And that's a thing that even though they have teamwork, they understand team. All that team was built around the fact that the overall team built this culture, and fortunately for them, put money up to be able to pay them to become a team, right? And so you kind of have to do that yourself.
Yeah, and you have to understand too that, like, sometimes it's smaller than they want to be, right? Like when they first start a business out, they're a small local business, and they may be making money that is pennies to them, right?
Yeah.
And they're looking at it. And it's the same for people that take that jump from the corporate world and jump down to just running their own business, right? They leave the corporate world and they start their own business or run their own brand, whatever it might be. But a lot of the times that initial start of the business is small, and they don't, like, it's so hard for them to mentally get that drive to keep going when they see these small numbers, right? It's that big picture. When they were playing athletically, they had that big picture of the championship or the big picture of going to college or the big picture of going to the professional level. And so they have to reshape all of those things, right, back into a new dream or a new vision that's long-term, and then use that short-term focus on that long-term dream.
I like that you said that, because that was going to lead to what I was going to talk a little bit about grit here in a little bit, because, a lot of athletes that come to me, they that does happen. I mean, I think it happens to business owners too at certain parts of Valleys of Death, where it's like, I mean, it happened to me. I had a point where, yes, I wasn't making $10 million a year, but I don't necessarily, I'm just one of those people. I'm frugal. I'm a minimalist. I don't need things. You kind of see it. I'm getting off tangent here, but you kind of see it with a lot of actors too, right? They get to a certain point in their career, they have a certain amount of money, and then they're like, well, I don't really have anything to achieve for anymore. And so you see this whole change in personal perspective of life on what's really important and what I really need to do. And it comes back down to redefining that vision, right? And so what I always say to these athletes is that, you have this ability to go look at the 10-year picture. Like, you have a 10-year picture, you have a 5-year picture, you have a 1-year picture, and then you have, your month increments there. And those are goals, right? So, and I always use this one, even though I don't know why I use this example, but I don't know how many athletes want to become veterinarians or work with animals, but I use it because it's simple. Let's say that you tell yourself, hey, my main goal is that I wanna save an animal species, for instance. And that's your 10-year goal. You're like, this is what I love to do. I love animals. I love this. So that could be your 10-year goal. Your 5-year goal may not actually be helping those, you may not become a veterinarian. You may become, a nonprofit that helps certain animals. That 10-year goal may be a veterinarian. You may open a ranch. Like, there's so many different things of that 10-year goal that outcome could mold to. And then you let your 5-year goal be a little bit more close, and then you let your 1 year be a little bit more close, and then you have these daily and these monthly goals that you start setting for yourself, or tasks, BHAGs, whatever you want to call them, that kind of help you kind of define how to get there. But things are going to shift. Just like going from professional to owning your own thing, it happens with business owners too. Like I just said, it happened to me. you kind of go through a rebrand and you kind of evolve as a person, and you're like, well, my why isn't really, it's not that my why is changing. It's that my why is getting redefined, and I have to define what my newly self mentality and what I've learned. How does that evolve into a much more positive why? A lot of them, like you said, they focus on championship. They're like, hey, that's a good short-term goal, 1-year goal, 2-year goal. That's the beauty and the curse of watching sports, as you have this 1-year goal, but then you start all over again the next day. And you have to kind of realize there has to be a bigger goal for self and for life that you need to kind of put into place. And it is possible for athletes to own a business, but you're right. Like, there comes a time when you're like, well, I made $20 million a year. If you working in finance of some sort, realize that, like, hey, like, you just put $1 million away. Like, you could be living off of $55,000 a year and you would not lose any of your money, So it's one of those situations where business kind of comes about the same way, but you have a lot of hard work. But why would you want to do that if you have all this money? Why would you want to take all that extra hard work? So it really comes down to the mentality of the athlete and realizing, hey, like, I have to be able to allow myself to work just as hard as I did to become a professional athlete, to open this business. I may not be making as much at first, but damn well, I'm going to try to reach this vision, because this is what I want to do now.
So there's a couple of things I want to touch on there, right? So, like, what you're talking about is what I call the organic journey. I don't necessarily like to say 10-year goal or picture or anything, because I'm not a big time guy. I think can be a self-limiting belief if you put time limits on it. But having this vision out there, right? And then you walk a path to get there, but there are things that are going to happen that you're going to have forks in the road. And you may open your first business and it comes to a head, and a year in, 2 years in, whatever, you rebrand it and you go a different direction. And that's okay, because at that time, it was what was right? Mm-hmm. We're 2 years into our journey. That's what was right. Or you go down the road and there's this opportunity that pops up and you can't turn it down. And again, things change. Like you said, you may want to save a certain animal species, and that may turn into 5 or 6 different things to achieve that goal of saving that animal species, right? It could be a nonprofit. It could be a brand that donates money to a nonprofit through T-shirts or socks, or all these companies out there now that are doing that type of thing, right? So it could turn into a clothing brand that just donates money, that has this mission, or it could turn into a ranch, like you said. It could turn into so many different things. It's that organic journey of you just start moving towards that goal, and then take it as it happens, and that's okay. You don't have to have every step planned out. Things are going to happen. Life is going to happen. Experiences are going to happen. And then you can make those decisions of what is right now for that goal.
And I think back to what you were saying, like right now, I think that, and back to vision, I think the big takeaway here is you just kind of stick around. Like, does this match my vision?
Right.
Does this match my continued growth of my vision to do this? Because I think it's so easy once you start making a whole bunch of money to be like, oh, I'm going to try this. I'm going to try that. I'm going to try this. I mean, I've worked with athletes too, and a lot of them come in and they're like, we'll just use their website as an example. It's all over the place. They're like nonprofit, this. And I'm like, why would anyone want to come here? And they're all over the place. You have to figure out your why and your vision, and you have to focus on one overall goal so that you can really achieve something. And
absolutely
not spend all of your time splitting up your time trying to do 80 different things.
And one of the things that, like, I was thinking about when you were talking about that transition as well is the documentary Kelsey. When Jason Kelsey was getting ready to retire the first time, before he decided to come back, but they have the documentary, and he's talking to a lot of ex-players, and it's like, hey, how do I get ready? Because I know a lot of ex-players, when they get done, they don't have any purpose. They, fall out of shape. They die early, this happens, that happens, whatever. All these things happen. Their life falls apart. Their families fall apart. And again, I think that that's one of the things that it is. It's that purpose, that why, like you've said a few times, right? It's about having that purpose. And if you don't have that purpose, you can be all over the place, like you said. I want to do 27 different things. It doesn't matter how much money you have. If you're living because most of these guys are done at 30, maybe 40 years old. So you've got 40 years to live with no goal.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter how much money you have. You're going to be unhappy and you're going to probably run out of money because you don't have a reason. You don't have any kind of goal or purpose. Then you're just wandering around aimlessly. You're going to make decisions based off of what? An impulse, basically, because there's no vision in the future. There's no purpose. There's no why. There's nothing to base your decisions off of as you're living, right? And that can be applied to anybody, not just professional athletes or not just people that are retiring from that professional athlete space. If you don't have that vision in mind, then what is the foundation for the decision you're making?
Well, and it goes so much deeper than that. I mean, I think that if you want to look at some of the tangibles, like even social media marketing or marketing in general, like if you don't have a vision, you're not going to be able to come up with a schedule. If you don't have a schedule, you're not going to be able to come up with actionable KPIs or actionable metrics to track certain things. When it comes to, like you said, everyone, I think it's inevitable. I think everyone goes through, like you said, like what I call, the inevitable rebrand period of certain parts of life. And it can happen at any time. Does money become part of that factor? I think somewhat it does. I think a lot of us have some sort of trauma where when we first start off, we think that for some reason money is a huge indicator of success. And then you get to a point where you're like, it's not really a success metric for me anymore. Yes, I want to keep it. I want it to grow. There's always you always want to make sure that you're watching bottom line and top line. But, my purpose now within my part of my business, it's just something as small as like one of our values, which is, integrity. Like I want to be honest to my employees. I want to be honest to all the prospects or the people we bring on into the agency and what we do. I want to be straightforward with athletes. When we talk to our athletes, I'm pretty straightforward with them. I'm not going to come in as a fan. I'm not going to come in as an expert. I'm just going to be straightforward and be like, this is how it looks. This is how it is. But stuff, just small motivational type things like myself. I personally just don't want to let myself down, and that's a good motivation for me. Like, is this going to let me down if I don't do this, or if I do this, and use that as a metric for myself to keep going.
Right. And that kind of also goes back to that very first point that we made about grit, right? And grit can mean something different for each person a little bit. That individuality kicks in, and that grit can be a little bit different. For some people, that grit is going to be that resounding purpose or that resounding, why internally, that why to prove the haters wrong, to, that chip on the shoulder talk, right? That's for some people, that's grit for them. For other people, it's, I don't want to let myself down. I've put in all this hard work. I need to achieve for me because I've done all these things. I can't let myself down, like you just said, right? That, again, it all circles back to that same thing that you were talking about with grit, right? It's that internal grit, and you have to identify what is it for you that's going to make you persevere. What is your purpose? Is it purpose of some sort, or is it a vision of some sort? Is it, proving people wrong, proving yourself right? What is that internal thing that gives you that grit and gives you, that push?
Well, and I'm not going to say that there isn't smart moves you can take during, the vision and the goal.
Absolutely.
Mean, I was talking to an athlete a couple weeks ago, retired athlete, and he does something great. He works with children, and he works with a underpopulation and training children for the sport. The problem when we were having our conversation was, he's like, oh, I only do it 2 months out of the year. and I want this to grow to a larger business, but I only do it 2 months out of the year. Oh, and I don't charge these people because they're this, and this. And I'm like, well, that means your model's broken. Like, you need to fix your model. Your vision could still work with these types of children, but we just need to find a different way to do it that's actually going to build you income. because there's a difference between I think from a persevere perspective and following a vision and taking the right path, continuing to pivot and take the right path to that outcome of that vision.
Absolutely. No, grit is not everything, and vision is not everything.
Yeah.
It can be the foundation of why you continue and why you push, for sure, but it's not everything. There has to be other things that go on there, and your decisions still have to be smart. It's not that you can just say, oh, I have grit or I have a chip on my shoulder, I'm going to make it because of that. Josh just said on his podcast with Zach, they said grit was it all that it took. No, that's definitely not what it is, right? You still have to make decisions. This is a building block, right? It's a foundation for how you build on top of that, right? Like I said, the organic journey along the way, the vision or the purpose is out there and you're working towards that and you're moving forward, but the grit, the purpose, the vision is what gives you the baseline of the decisions that you make when you come to the fork in the road, right? And then you look back on it and it's going to look like a root system, right? Like a tree root system where you've got lots of different little forks. And if you would have gone that way, it would have had lots of different little forks. And this one would have had forks. Those are decisions that you have to make. And they're not all going to arrive at the same spot. They're going to all have different versions of where they arrive. And some are going to be further along than others. Just having grit, just having a vision is not going to get you there, right? Elon Musk's vision is to live in space, I'm pretty sure. Is he going to achieve that in his lifetime? I don't know. Probably not, but I wouldn't count him out. But, just having that vision doesn't make it come true.
Yeah.
It's not just going to magically happen because you have grit and you have perseverance and you have a vision. And like you said, like with that business, that what his goals are not aligning. And that's what I talk about all the time is alignment, right? Your vision and your goals have to align. And right now, that's not what's happening. The goal of making a national business or a regional business or whatever, like growing the business, that's the goal versus helping underprivileged kids, right? Okay, well, you have to balance those two things. There has to be a seesaw balancing act between those two things. Either you charge less, you get grants, you do something, because otherwise you're just spending money on kids, right? If you're just giving your services away for free, you're just giving your money away. You're not a business at that point.
Well, and it's funny your talk on grants and sponsorships, because when I go to the schools and I talk to a lot of these kids, especially right now with NIL and everything that's going on with that, is anytime personal branding is such a trigger word, because I think that a lot of them just are like, I hear this all the time. They're just like, I want sponsorships. And I'm like, well, what's your goal? Like, what are you doing in school right now? What are your plans? Oh, no, I just want to get paid doing sponsorships. I'm like, well, like you said, I'm like, well, do you have a vision? Like, do you have a goal? What's the reasoning for the sponsorship? Because if it's just to make a few bucks, that's not a business model. You do need to understand that building a personal brand or even a corporate brand, whatever direction you decide to go, that you have to have your alignment with self and you have to have your alignment with the sponsors, and it has to actually be a business model around that, or you're just going to be put in a spot where you're making a few bucks here and there and it's not going to last long.
Absolutely. 100%. I'm so glad you jumped on that, because I literally just had this conversation with a kid the other day that there's so many people that use their scholarship to play basketball or baseball or football in college incorrectly. right? The purpose of being a college athlete, again, 1% go pro or whatever the statistic is, right? But it's about setting yourself up for the future. What is that vision for the future? Where are you going to go in the future? Because the alumni of that college love to brag that, hey, so-and-so works for me. It's about setting yourself up for the future and saying, and making those relationships. And just like what you're saying with the NIL, what is the purpose? Is the purpose a personal brand that you're going to grow, you're going to showcase, and, take it into a celebrity status after college, right? Is that your purpose, to just up your status? Or is your purpose to build relationships with these businesses so that after college, you potentially have a place to land? What is the purpose? What is the goal? What is the alignment of taking these sponsorships? Just like you said, if it's just to get a couple dollars in your pocket, there's no sustainability.
No, yeah, I think sustainability is a good word there, because you have to kind of think about it from both perspectives, right? I know people don't want to, but it's like these businesses are hiring you for a reason, because they want you to bring them more business. And so when I'm talking to athletes about, sponsorship opportunities, and they always ask me, how do I grow fast on Instagram? How do I grow fast on YouTube? How do I grow fast on this and that? And I'm like, well, I'll be honest. All those gimmicky things, the fast track ways, they don't work. Getting a million subscribers from people from fake accounts isn't going to build you sponsorship opportunities. It's not. Because at the end of the day, it's just a way for, they're not going to get the business from it. So when it comes back to what you're doing, I always tell athletes this, back to what we talked about with the goals. It's like, hey, what are you doing in school? Like, what is the main because you're right. College is a place to set a sustainable foundation for yourself for the future. And you want to make sure, if you're in communications, make sure you're in communications because you want to be, not because you're just trying to get go pro. Pick something. I mean, you see so many professional athletes get out of the game, and then they go and they be a doctor, or they go towards the career that they want to go after, if it's opening their own business. But the beauty of it is you now have a story. You now have two different paths that you can combine to help you. And that's just not going to help you find your vision, but it's also going to help you find the types of sponsors or the types of business model that you want to grow. Because you're now, for instance, if you're a veterinarian, I mean, I forgot who the athlete was, but there's an athlete out there, and you may know who they are, where they love their dog. They post pictures of their dog all the time, and so they got sponsorships from PetSmart, and so that's a very simple example of how they took something that they were passionate about outside the game with inside the game, and they mixed them together to create a vision and a story towards something that meant something to them.
Absolutely. It's that authenticity and matching your message is so important, right? Like, that's what social media misses a lot of the time. And I think the best place that you see that, like the most glaring example of that, is within like music, right? Because you can look at a musician's Instagram or TikTok or whatever, or YouTube, and they may have 100,000 subscribers or 100,000 followers or whatever, and you may have another one that has 2 million. But the one with 100,000 is headlining towards the one with 2 million is an opening act. And the reason for that is this person just wanted to grow. I just want to grow on Instagram. What can I do? What can I do? What can I do? And then the one with 100,000 followers, they did it the right way. They organically grew. So every one of those 100,000 followers is a die-hard fan that only cares about that musician, right? And this 2 million, it's just followers that follow everybody. They probably follow every musician because that's just what they do. They just follow people, right? It's the same thing. It's the same thing with athletes. There's plenty of them out there that have big followings on social media, and they're failures. when it comes to brand, because there's no authenticity, there's no spot, there's no message. It's just, I just want to be big. I just want people to know my name. That doesn't get you anywhere.
And it's funny because I kind of see a good example that athletes can kind of try to mimic is actually someone that you may be surprised on, but Ryan Reynolds. I mean, I think he's a great example of someone in the actor realm that said, "Hey, I'm taking my passions as an actor, and then I'm kind of starting to slowly open." And yeah, he's doing more than one thing now. I'm not saying you can't do more than one thing, but becoming part of something that's part of his vision, and then using his celebrity status as part of his own endorsements, then you don't have to worry about getting sponsors, right? Then you are the sponsor of your own product. And
Exactly.
so I taking that into consideration when we talk about these college athletes, and when they're growing, I think that it's really just comes down to that. It's what you said. It's like, hey, kind of come focus on your vision, focus on this. Like, sponsorships will come. I mean, I have sponsorships that I've turned down because that's right now, it's not in our model, but two, it's part of our ethos. I only work with people that I feel are, somewhat trying to change the world, and so I'm not going to work with someone that's just here to make money. I'm sorry, money's part of it, but we're all on the planet for one reason, and that one reason is to help civilization grow in a positive light. And so that's what I want. I'm just doing it in my own way, and so find ways that you can use your grit and your perseverance and your vision to find a path that makes you eager and want to not just work on yourself, but eventually help other people.
For sure. And you bring up Ryan Reynolds, and he's not the only one out there that's doing that, but it's definitely something that's becoming more and more popular, is that you build your own ecosystem, right? Like Barstool has done that, right? Barstool has all these different brands and all these different podcasts and all this different social media stuff. And then they use their internal personalities to promote other things. And then they start their own brands based off of that. But Barstool still owns all of it. They have, drinks now. They have shirts for everything. Every time something happens, they create a new shirt. And then guess what? They already have the celebrity status to push it and brand it and all of those things. There's tons of different places out there that are doing that exact same thing, building their own ecosystem around who they are, right? Barstool's deal is being controversial, right? That's their deal. And that's fine, because that's what they stick to. They are unapologetic. They're uncensored. Do your own thing. Do what you want. And Ryan Reynolds is just super genuine, authentic, wants to make the world a better place, right? He's building his ecosystem around that purpose, around that vision. Barstool build an ecosystem around that purpose, around that vision. And then when we take it back to athletes and these sponsorships, especially in college, which we kind of talked about, it's about building those relationships so you can build that ecosystem, right? It's not just taking sponsorships to pay a bill. It's about that relationship that you're going to be able to form there, because maybe it's a Ryan Reynolds that's the company owner, right? And he may just be giving you a sponsorship deal for the smallest company he owns. And then you build that relationship, and then it can stack and build and grow. And like you said, you only want to work with certain people. So do those other businesses, right? They only want to work with certain people. So it's about growing those relationships and that how those things all intertwine together.
I think you brought up a nice something that I get triggered with quite a bit as of recently, which is the fact that when you look at social media in general, there comes a time when you have to stop looking at the tangible side of it, which is, a lot of social media has become very transactional. And I'm not saying people can't do transactions, need to grow and make money, but it's become very unfacing And you have to kind of get past that mentality and get to the mentality that you were saying. Once you start seeing social media as a community of, hey, I get to meet people. I get to, have like you and me here. Like we met, we now have a call. We're building our own little friendship out of this podcast. And it's about that kind of stuff, right? It's about being able to meet like-minded people and being able to grow not just yourself, but grow your community with social media. And that's how you're going to build connection. That's how you're going to start building. And a lot of that will come back to self, come back to the personal value side of who you are as a person. Because if you don't value yourself, you don't value the premise of where you want to go and what you want to do, coming up with that vision, focusing on certain things, then you're not going to allow yourself to connect with those people. And you're just going to continue to look at social media as this premise of, oh, I just need to post on LinkedIn every day or on Instagram every day so I could get followers. Look at it deeper than that. Look at it for what it's meant to do and start building a community. Find out what the followers you're starting to have, what they really want, what they value, and kind of go from there. And I think that's also a mindset shift that some people get it right away, but like most people need to start going through when it comes to social media. One, so it doesn't go into the plethora of, oh, this is just a transactional type system, but two, so that we can start building a community of people that we can start not just leveraging, but building our own family, our own community around similar goals.
Oh, absolutely. I've talked about it so many times about people using social media the right way and the power of social media when you use it the right way, right? Everybody has seen these creators now blow up as huge entrepreneurs, but it's because they built a community first. And then that community is diehard and follows them everywhere they go. Same thing with musicians, the ones that did it the right way. They've got 100,000 followers or however many followers. But as soon as they release a track, as soon as they release an album, whatever it is, boom, instantly their followers jump on it and blow it up because it's loyalty. It's that community reaching out and being able to go across the country, right? With your connections. Who is it out there that you can connect with? Where can you take your business? Because I'm in South Carolina. I can do business with people in California. I can do business with people in Texas. I can do business with people in New York like that because of social media, because of the internet, because of the things. But there's different value systems in all of those places, right? Somebody in California is going to think differently than somebody in Texas. Is going to think differently than somebody in New York. But there's somebody that may have moved to Texas from South Carolina, somebody that may have moved to California. And it's about putting out your genuine self and building a community about that genuine vision and what it really is and who you really are. Yeah. That allows those people to be able to connect with you. Because so many people here will be like, oh, I could never get along with the people in New York because they just think New York City. They don't think upstate New York. They don't think about different parts of the actual state. Or, oh, we could never get along with people in California. And again, that's a huge problem, obviously, in the country, is people thinking they can't get along with other people. But when you use social media the right way, when you put yourself out there genuinely, you're going to find other people in other places that have the same mantra, that have the same belief system, have the same everything. There's a song called Country Must Be Countrywide, and it talks about that exact thing of country music is seen to be in the South, but country artists still sell out shows in New York State. They still sell out in California. They still sell out in Florida. They sell out everywhere because there's people that believe in that message all across the country.
Yeah.
It's not about where you're at. It's about who you are. Wow. And that's the power of social media.
Okay.
Connecting with people that think the same way, that want the same things. in life.
Yeah.
And like you said, you're just posting to get big. That's lost. There's no personal brand.
I think a lot of it. I think a lot of it too comes back to that self journey you were talking about. That and what do you call that?
Organic journey.
Organic journey, right? There's a time and a place where I think that, and I think this happens a lot with athletes too. That what gets them to becoming pro, but that sense of feeling seen and heard, right?
Yeah.
I have had not quite a bit. I probably had like 6 or 7 athletes that have come in. From my perspective, that are like, hey, like, I just want to get likes and follows. And I'm just like, why? Or why do you want to get? And it always comes down to they still have this internal process of wanting to be seen and heard by other people. When it's like, no, what you really want is you really want to start being seen and heard for yourself. And once you can get past that validation of other people giving you that, like, oh, you made it kind of mentality, because I'll be honest, you do get to a point where it's the opposite happens. People are looking down on you because you've worked hard, because they haven't done it, and that's their own self organic journey making it to where they want to go. But from a personal perspective, you have to start thinking about yourself, and not in a negative way, not in an egotistical way, but in a much more confident kind of way on, this isn't about me being seen and heard by other people. I mean, like I told you, I have 3 young children myself, and I know you have children. I feel validation just being seen and heard by them. Like I'm there to help them. Why do I need other people to get a like and a follow? Yes, I still look at those, but I look at them more as a metric of, oh, is this working? Is this not working? How can I improve my content? But for a majority of people, it's that sense of being unseen and unheard, that they need to kind of work on themselves, and that's what's going to allow them. And I mean, I could get much deeper into the premise of branding and how that affects the growth of a business and all that, but that would probably take a whole nother podcast to get on. But for now, I would say, yeah, that feeling of unseen and unheard, maybe look at yourself a little bit. Maybe say, hey, like, what do I really want here? And hence back to my own quote of, I don't want to let myself down. I don't want to let myself down, because I will let other people down, and how I am helping them. And so I'm not saying, oh, I didn't get a like today. I didn't get a follow today. This person didn't do this, today for me, So I think that would be a key takeaway, I think, from this podcast, as you're kind of coming up with your vision and your goal, is to kind of say, am I just doing this to feel seen and heard, or am I, do I need to bring something else into my life to contribute to that?
Absolutely. I mean, it's that same thing that we talked about understanding what makes you tick, that what makes your grit happen, right? What gives you that grit, but it's also that understanding of personal perspective of why are you doing things, your personal why, your purpose, whatever it might be, like, but really being honest about it. And that's where the kids do come in handy, because we both know that they can make you see or feel seen and heard, but they can also make you feel dumb at the same time, right? Because kids are brutally honest about things, right? They don't have a filter. They're going to say what they feel. And so, that's one of the things that I think gets lost a lot, is people they're not honest with themselves a lot of times, because we live in this culture of social media where it is just put the highlights out there, put all the highlights on social media, post to post, right? And it's not this, why are you doing it? Like, for me, I don't post a ton on social media, because if I don't have something valuable to say, I'm not going to say it. It has nothing to do with, like, oh, what are people going to think about me? That's what some people do. Some people don't post on social media because they're like, oh my gosh, what are people going to think about me? But it's, for me, if I don't have something valuable to say, I'm not going to say it. It's a waste of my time. It's a waste of your time. When you come and look at what I post, I want you to think like, hey, this is great. This is exactly what I needed today. When you watch a podcast, I want you to think, man, I got something out of that. That's exactly what I wanted. Not, oh my God, look how many views he's got. Oh my gosh, it's so great. Is what it is. If it changes one person's life, if it changes 10 people's life, it still changed somebody's life. That's what it's about.
Yeah, I think my favorite part of two favorite parts of my day is, one, I love these podcasts. They always make my day through the rest of the day because I get to meet like-minded people. But two, is when one or two people, come to me and they're just like, hey, you really changed my life, or you changed my perspective on this. That makes my day, because it's like, oh, I'm helping someone. I know you could call it validation, but at the same time, it's more of, I just enjoy helping people in the way I can help people.
Absolutely. You can call it validation like you said, but for me, I've always said that I do podcasts selfishly because when I get done with a conversation, I'm so energized, I'm so amped up that I will go and crush whatever I have next. And I learn so much through these conversations. I learn so much through the people that I meet and people that I get to talk to that I can then use for the next 10 years, right? Like I can take little pieces of every conversation and then apply it to the next thing that I'm doing with the next person or whatever it is. It's that perspective. I get new perspectives. I get to see new perspectives. So I say it all the time that I do it selfishly. So if people view it, if people don't view it, of course it matters because I don't want to waste your time for nobody to see it. But it would not really matter to me because I get something out of it. So if people don't watch it, it is what it is because I got something out of it. I grew a little bit. I progressed in my journey by having the conversation. And I think that is what people have to find. What is it that is that one step at a time mentality for you in your journey? What is it that if I take a step in this direction, I'm happy regardless of the outcome? That's the true, honest answer of your why, of your grit, of your this stuff, right? Mm-hmm. Is if I take one step, regardless of the outcome, am I going to be happy or not? What will make me happy in that one step?
Well said. Well said.
Hey, man, it takes me a while to figure things out. You know what I'm saying, guys? I just always get to the end of the podcast and find some like little gem in there. That's what this is about, though, right? That's right. Yeah. That's what this is all about. But yeah, man, I really appreciate you jumping on here. This was an absolute blast for me, and I just want to thank you for your time. But one more time, just give out a shout out to your business, your brand, tell people where they can find you, all that good stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Well, again, my name is Zach Coleman. We own a great and motivation focused branding agency. As of right now, we're kind of taking a little bit of a external path. We're starting to help everyday athletes, which are leaders in the gym space, kind of find their why and make it past that first valley death stage, which is, roughly about $500K a year. And we have a 3-step process that people can learn. We have a private podcast that we just literally put out to help them get past that valley of death period and start building a sustainable lead flow in just 5 minutes a day. So anyone who wants to check that out, if you're a leader in the gym space, if you're a general manager, if you're a marketing manager, or even an athlete looking to kind of grow in the gym space, go ahead and head on over to leavethatmark.com and sign up for that private podcast now.
Awesome. Thank you again so much. All the links for your stuff will be down in the description anyway, so people, you can definitely always check that out and find him. But again, thank you so much, listeners. We've changed our date. We always release on Wednesdays. We are going back to Wednesdays. I know we used to do that in the past, and we're going back to Wednesdays. So check us out on YouTube, everywhere you can find podcasts. And like always, let's go.